Welcome to the Mindfulness Meditation Podcast presented by the Rubin Museum of Himalayan Art, a global museum dedicated to bringing greater awareness and understanding of Himalayan art to people around the world. I'm your host, Tashi Chudran. Every week, we offer a meditation session that draws inspiration from an artwork from the Rubens collection and is led by a prominent meditation teacher. You can find more information about the related artwork in the episode description. Our Mindfulness Meditation Podcast is presented in partnership with Sharon Salzberg and teachers from the New York Insight Meditation Center, the Interdependence Project, and supported by the Frederick P. Lenz Foundation for American Buddhism. And now, please enjoy your practice. Hello, everybody. Tashi Delek. Welcome to the Rubin Museum of Himalayan Art's Mindfulness Meditation Program. I am Tashi Chudran, Himalayan Programs and Communities Ambassador, and I'm delighted to be your host today. The Rubin is a global museum dedicated to presenting Himalayan art and its insights, and we're so glad to have all of you join us for our weekly program where we combine art and meditation. Inspired by our collection, we will first take a deep look at the work of art we've chosen for today. We will then hear a brief talk from our teacher, Michel Pascal, and then we will have a short sit, 15 to 20 minutes, for the meditation guided by him. Let's take a look at today's theme and artwork. The artwork for today's session is Wrathful Activity, Fierce Energy. This is dated 2018, and the artist is Shehzad Dawood. This is a neon on black painted board sculpture. The theme for the month of March is Fierce Compassion. This contemporary work of art is inspired from the fierce, wrathful deities in Tibetan Buddhism. The purpose of wrathful deities is to protect practitioners from negative forces and destroy obstacles on the path to enlightenment. They wield fierce compassion in order to propel us forward. Buzzing with energy, this abstracted fierce figure is a contemporary twist on depictions of Buddhist deities who help practitioners transcend obstacles. The contemporary artist Shehzad Dawood, born in London in 1974, blends cultural heritage with references to popular visual culture and materials, like the neon of this sculpture, to re-examine how we tell and perceive history. Skull crowns often adorn with heads of wrathful deities. There are 6 small skulls and enveloping flames above the central figure's elongated face. The glowing neon gives the sculpture a playful quality and reveals the goodwill beneath the figure's tough exterior. Now let's bring on our teacher for today. Our teacher is Michel Pascal. Michel, a meditation teacher for 25 years, has led successful programs for prisoners which help prevent suicides and reduce reoffending. He's written 20 books on spirituality, including Meditation for Daily Stress, 10 Practices for Immediate Well-Being, known as the Medicine Voice. He's performed at Carnegie Hall and played at the Peace Day concert in Times Square in September 2023. In December 2023, he presented his methods at the United Nations. Michel, thank you so much for being here.
O Mani Padme Hum. O Mani Padme Hum. O Mani Padme Omani, Omani Meo. Omani Meo. Hello to each of you in this podcast. Today, let's talk about compassion. Compassion. We need to have compassion. Yes, in theory. But how can we have compassion when life is difficult? Maybe my words will surprise you, but for me, compassion means also distance. Because sometimes our situations are too much difficult. How can we have compassion to someone unkind, to someone who insults us, to someone who can abuse us? Is it not possible? We can have compassion in theory for everyone. We can say love is the answer. Yes, in theory, we say what we want. It's easy. But in the real life, how can we have compassion? Facing the waves of the life, facing people very mean to us. How is it possible? So compassion doesn't mean to be naive. Compassion doesn't mean to say how love is the answer. There is no love like that. Compassion doesn't mean to be naive, and sometimes compassion means to take a distance. Like we say to the person in our heart, your suffering is not mine. The way you talk to me is not mine. Keep your toxic energy. I keep my distance. I don't judge. I don't reply to your negative attitude with a negative attitude. Just I say bye-bye. I move. I remember my Rinpoche, my Tibetan master, say all time to me, Michel, you win a fight, a conflict, when you refuse to fight. When you refuse the conflict, you win. So compassion can be a distance. We have compassion, but at distance. It means that we are able to pray for someone unkind with us, but with a distance. The distance remind me the teaching of Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche about meditation. When he say, when you observe a situation, at the moment you observe, you meditate. When you observe the situation of someone unkind, just when you observe, like you are in a movie theater and you see the film on the screen. You observe the film, but you are not inside the film. And you are able to sit at the last row in the back of the theater. Like you have a distance with the screen. You have a distance with the situation. You have a distance with someone unkind. And like that, you can send your compassion. You can say, I see your suffering, but your suffering is not mine. I refuse to be your punching ball. I refuse to be your victim. I refuse to be the trash of your emotions. So I have compassion for you, but compassion with a distance. And let's go deeper. Like that, when we take a distance, we realize how the person unkind suffer. And we realize that we cannot talk to this person because sometimes she or he is unable to listen. So you have a distance, but you see the situation. And the more you see the situation with a distance, the more your acuity increase. The more you see deeper and deeper the situation. And from that, you can develop compassion for this person. Because this person has not the chance that you have to see the situation. This person doesn't realize what she say, what he say. This person is just the yo-yo of the emotion, the toy of the emotion. Or this person tried to expurge a pain that she received or he received before. But you can say, I see your suffering, but with compassion, with distance. Your suffering is not mine. This karma is over for me. I have understood that compassion means distance. And when I understand that, it calms my mind. Compassion can become a spiritual practice to calm our mind, to re-educate our brain. It's not we don't react, because our reaction is to take a distance. But our reaction, instead of to reply to a negative energy by our negative energy, we reply saying, bye-bye. Your suffering is not mine. I take a distance. This is compassion. Compassion, of course, it's also for people everywhere, for people all around the world. But all around the world starts with our world. Compassion to our pet. We need to have compassion to our friends, to our family members, to our colleagues, to our neighbors, to every person that we meet. because every person that you will meet today is your teacher. Each person that you will meet today will teach you compassion. Compassion, again, doesn't mean naivety, but it means to see. But to see without judgment. I see a situation, but I am neutral. I don't project. I don't judge. I don't critique. I see with no judgment. This is compassion. Because at this moment, how I see you, I feel love inside of me. So each person that we meet today is our teacher. An opportunity to be more aware, an opportunity to be more present. When we are more present, we are more intelligent. So we develop compassion. We develop not naive compassion, but active compassion. We observe the situation. We are more present, more intelligent, so we are more kind. To enter in compassion means to be kind, and we are more free. Because the goal of the compassion, it's not to become more naive, but more free. I see you with no judgment, and suddenly I see you beyond you. I see the life beyond the appearance. I see the life beyond all what people can say, because I realize that all what we perceive, all what we think, all what we believe, it's an illusion. It's our mental projection. When I talk to you about compassion, for example, I talk from my own experience. But no one can say compassion is like this or like that. We talk, each of us, from our own experience. My experience comes from my childhood. I was abused during many years, physically, psychologically, and sexually. How can we develop compassion in a case like that? But what a beautiful opportunity to develop compassion. It means to develop our distance. And the moment we open our mind, our soul, to a quality of compassion who is not human, a quality of compassion grander than ourselves, a divine compassion. The moment we feel it's not, I forgive, but something grander than myself forgive through me. The divine compassion. The divine compassion. But in some cases, it's impossible. I remember few years ago, just few years ago, I was a meditation teacher for the last survivor of Auschwitz. It was amazing to see these people with a tattoo of the SS on their arm. How can we have compassion for the Nazi people? It's not possible. One of my students was Ernest Bronstein. Ernest survived. Ernest was exceptional. I love him a lot. He was an amazing student. I was his student. But how can we say to Ernest, you need to have compassion when you were in the camp of Auschwitz, when every day when the train arrives, you must push the deportees outside of the cattle cars, and you must say to them, go, go, and go to the gas chamber. And they didn't know. And after Ernest was affected to the Sonderkommando, he was affected when the gas chamber was open to take the bodies and to put the bodies in the cremation. How can we have compassion in cases like that? So, of course, in cases like that, we cannot have compassion. We cannot forgive. We cannot open our heart to something grander than ourselves. So, what can we do? We cannot forgive, but we can calm the mind. Because when we calm the mind, we dissolve the trauma. We dissolve the mental picture of our memory. Suddenly, when you calm the mind, the memory is less active. When you calm the mind, the mental picture that we keep, the trauma is less active, less vivid. Calming the mind, dissolve the emotion. Calming the mind, heal everything. Everything. It's beyond compassion. It's dissolution. The dissolution of the traumatic event that we have experienced in our life. So it was very special to teach to Ernest Bronstein and all the survivors. And when I was leading the meditation, I felt in the room a calming energy. When we go back to our true nature, when we go back to our vacuity, to our soul, when we go back to something who never die inside of us. Our body died, our life is a perpetual transformation, but the energy who inform the atoms, the energy through us, never start, never die. When we say who I am, most of the time we reply, I am a job, I am a doctor, I am a musician, I am a corporate, I am an employee, I am a prisoner. We reply by a social name, a social activity. But who I am beyond that? Beyond that, I am the son of my parents. But beyond that, I am the son of many generations. But beyond that, I am the son of the elements. But beyond the elements, I am the son of the energy who never start, the energy who never die, the energy in a perpetual transformation. And at the moment I calm my mind, I can feel this energy inside of me. I will say it's a sort of ultimate compassion, ultimate freedom. I am free. I am calm. My trauma are less and less active. My trauma disappear. The past is over. It doesn't stay inside of me. I am in the present moment. I am free. I am the compassion. And the compassion is me. I am beyond any words that we can say to me, beyond any judgment, any events. I am in paradise. The paradise is not in the sky. The paradise is now, in the present moment. I go back to my true nature. So, to finish this podcast about meditation, I would like to lead a short meditation. As I was leading, the same that I was leading for the prisoners of Auschwitz. How can we dissolve the emotion? As you know, in our meditation program, no cushion, no exercise. What Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche names the non-meditation. Non-meditation, the opposite of the meditation that you can see anywhere in America. In America, meditation means, take a deep breath, etc. We go in a calming place to meditate, to calm the mind. And of course, it means nothing. Because when you go back to your stressful life, you are stressed immediately after. So the non-meditation of Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche was meaning to reconnect immediately to our eternity, to our true nature, to our vacuity. Or if we are Christian, we can say to the Christ. Not the Christ that we try to have through our representations or interpretations or mental projections, but the Christ that we are inside of us. The vacuity, the true nature, the nothing. So let's meditate like a sky. I snap 3 times and just we close our eyes. We are sitting down in a comfortable position. We do nothing. Just we are sitting down in a comfortable position. And we see our mind. Our mind is like a sky. And it's true, because our mind, our brain, is made by the same atoms that you can find in the universe. So we are made of sky. We are the sky. So we observe our mind like a pure blue sky. A beautiful, pure blue sky. And we see suddenly some clouds, some thoughts, maybe some dark clouds, dark energy, because today someone was talking to us unkind, or we have difficult news in our life. So we see the clouds in our mind, the dark clouds, dark thoughts. We breathe in like a wind, and we dissolve these clouds. immediately our mind is calm, clear, like a pure blue sky. No thought, no clouds. Our mind is like a sky. Let's do it again. We observe our mind. Our mind is like a sky. And we see some clouds, some thoughts, some bad memories sometimes that we kept from yesterday, from last year, from 10 years ago, from our childhood, from our ancestor. We breathe in like a wind, dissolve these clouds. And we stay like that, like a pure blue sky. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds in eternity. And when the mind is calm, when we meditate like a sky, we can listen some chanting from the sky. The same sort of chanting that people in the Middle Age, in the 12th century, were singing in the cathedral, Notre Dame of Paris. When we meditate like a sky, we become the sky. And we open our eyes. The to have this moment together, to have this podcast together. It's a blessing. Thank you so much to each of you. Thank you to organize this podcast. Thank you, Jason, to be the sound engineer. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you. Thank you to each of you. All my heart, my prayer to each of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Michelle, and thank you all for listening. That concludes this week's practice. If you enjoyed this podcast or are a weekly listener, we invite you to support this series by donating and becoming a friend of the Reuben at reubenmuseum.org/friends. The Reuben is a nonprofit that relies on the generous support of donors like you to create meaningful experiences with Himalayan art around the world. If you are looking for more inspiring content, check out our other podcast, Awaken, which uses art to explore the dynamic path to enlightenment and what it means to wake up, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Reuben Museum's work around the world, sign up for our newsletter at reubenmuseum.org/newsletter. Thank you for listening. Have a mindful day.